Hello, it's Zuko here, and today I wanted to give you 10 book recommendations of books that just feel like fall to me. These are not necessarily books that are set in the fall, they're just books that feel to me, personally, like fall. Does that make sense? I feel like I don't care if it makes sense because it makes sense to me and I'm making a video. So, we're gonna start off with my quintessential fall read. It's technically my quintessential Halloween read, but Halloween is in the fall, for me, on this northern hemisphere of ours, and that is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. We all know the story of Coraline, but the book and the movie feel like different beasts to me. There is characters added to the movie, there's things added to the movie, there's a lot of visual brilliance added to the movie, but the book is quietly creepier. If for some reason you don't know, Coraline is a story about a girl who moves into a house that has a tiny locked door. And when she unlocks the door and goes through it, she ends up in an alternate version of reality where she has another mother who makes this world this really magical place for Coraline specifically, and says she can stay there as long as she lets the other mother sew buttons into her eyes. I just love this book. This is such a fall book to me, and I will continue to read it every year until it loses its magic, which I hope is never. So this was my first fall book. The next book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Now, I have no idea what time of year this book takes place. I read it once. It just has fall vibes to me. I don't know. There's a loneliness and stuff that feels fall-y. Not winter. The book doesn't feel cold. It just feels lonely. And that feels like a fall vibe. If you do not know, and you are one of the few people who has not read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, good for you. Honestly, you're not really missing anything, but if you really want to read this and you want me for some reason to be the one to explain it to you, okay, I'll do it, but your taste is questionable. This is about a woman who lives in a superstitious village about 300 years ago, and she is betrothed to be married, and she one day prays to gods that answer after dark, after being explicitly told not to do that, because she wants to run away. She wants people to not see her because she is, I believe, being forced into a marriage that she doesn't want, and she just wants to get away from it. But in doing so, she has ended up cursed. They kind of monkey pot her, right? So people can't remember her. And she's living forever. Once she's out of your line of vision, she's not a person to you anymore. You forget she ever existed. So she can't form relationships, and she spent 300 years being so incredibly lonely. And one day she meets a man who remembers her. And I don't know, this book just has really fall vibes to me, and there's flowers all over it, so maybe it probably doesn't take place in the fall, but it has fall vibes to me, you know? So there's this one. Then there is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. And I think there's just something about bees that make me think of fall. I'm not even really sure why. I guess bees invoke that golden honey color, and that makes me think of harvest season when all of the straw and hay and just wheat fields and stuff are all that golden color. And that makes me think of fall. This book is, I guess, a story about stories. We follow a man who finds a door when he's a child, and he doesn't go through it. He always wondered what would happen if he went through it. And then later on, as he's an adult, he finds the door again. And I don't really know how to explain this book, because it's a portal fantasy, but it's not a portal fantasy. And I read it and I didn't really understand it. It's a very pretentious literary book, but in a way that's pleasant, and I didn't feel like I needed to know what the hell was going on by the end of it, but I really liked it, and it has a lot of bee and honey motifs in there. So this feels like fall to me. I don't know. It also has some school elements, and school stuff always makes me think of fall, even though school is a 3-season thing. Then I have Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This is about a man who dies and ends up at a cozy little tea shop run by a man whose job it is to ferry souls to wherever you go after you die, right? Heaven or whatever, through this door, where to the other side. This is a really just cute queer romance. It makes me think of fall because of the kind of death stuff feels very fall. And the little tea shop, a little cozy tea shop, this feels very cooler months. This has just fall energy to me. And this is such a cute book, and I really enjoy it. And I would love to read this again this fall. If I didn't have so many unread books, I think I would. But this book is not going to be read for me this fall, so please read this for me. This is just, if you want a good, quaint, queer romance that's got sci-fi elements, but isn't really aggressively in your face hard fantasy or hard sci-fi, I would pick this book up. Next, okay, nobody yell at me, but this book series feels like fall. It feels so aggressively like fall to me, and that is The Twilight Saga by Stephanie Meyer. I don't know if it's because I read it when I was like in school or like what, but like I reread these last September. Something about September, like, you know, Bella starts out at school through this book. She's at school, she graduates, there's like years of high school going by. These books just feel like fall to me. And is that just me to you? Do these feel like a different season? Is this just a fall book to me? But if you haven't read Twilight, don't. Like, truly, I don't recommend these books to anybody who's never read them before. But if you read Twilight in middle school or high school in, 2008, then reread them and you might still love them like I do. So these are a fall book to me. And, like, I think they still hold up. But, like, that's based on the fact that they were never great to begin with. And I don't think I was ever, like, enchanted into thinking these were, like, a really great written book series. So I went in with, like, low expectations. And honestly, I went into my reread expecting to hate them. And I still had so much fun. So if you have a lot of nostalgia for Twilight and you're, like, worried about reading them, I suggest picking them up this fall and rereading them anyway. Then there is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. So I think this is a fall book to me because it takes place through college. And, you know, starting college and stuff, you do in, like, September. And that's just, like, a really fall thing, right? It's going back to school. So this is a book about twin sisters who go to college. They're separated for the first time. One of them is a prolific fan fiction writer, and she spends a lot of her time and energy on fan fiction instead of, like, making friends, while the other twin is out making friends and, like, doing her own thing. And the sister who is writing fan fiction, Cather, I think, she is isolating herself, but she ends up making friends with her roommate's ex-boyfriend, I believe. And it's just, like, this really sweet story about, I think, college and family and prioritizing things in your life. And this feels like a fall book to me. I really enjoy it. This is the book that she writes fan fiction of the Simon Snow series, which is what Rainbow Rowell turned into the Carry On and Simon Snow trilogy. So this book inspired that. So that's exciting. If you haven't read this, I recommend it. Then, okay, and this one's weird because, like, I didn't like this book, but there is Gilded by Marissa Myers. This is a Rumpelstiltskin reimagining. So this girl is out one night and she is caught by, I want to say the Earl King or something. Is that what it is? And she tells him, oh, I'm outside right now because I was spinning straw into gold, because she lies a lot. And he hears that she does this, and he starts, on the full moon, I think, he starts taking her back to his castle to make her spin straw into gold, but she actually can't do that. But she meets a ghost who can, and it's just, I don't know, straw again. It just, the straw color makes me think of fall. I think part of this book takes place in fall, but I think it's also like winter. I don't know. I did not like this book, and I think other people who love Marissa Myers' writing did not think this was her best fairy tale reimagining. It's, like, got good folklore and stuff in it that I enjoyed. I just didn't like the main characters or the incredibly insta-lovey heterosexual romance. But and it ends with a trope that I hate, and it was super predictable, but I hate it, and I hated it the entire time. And I'm probably going to still read the sequel, even though I don't really remember reading this book. This is the Fairy Loot edition, by the way. Isn't it pretty? Like, I don't want to get rid of it. So that sucks, because my heart doesn't like this book. But yeah, that's why it's fall to me. Okay, next is a book that, if you're going to read any of these as an audiobook, I really recommend picking up the audiobook for this, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a book told in, like, split perspectives. One perspective is the protagonist, who has a stutter. Her sister has disappeared, and she is out hunting for who she thinks took her sister. And the other half is a podcast talking about the disappearance of, I believe, Sadie's sister. And it's just told in, like, a podcast format, which really suits an audiobook. So I super recommend this. Please pick this up. Please pick up the audiobook. Also, if you like audiobooks and that's your thing, like, listen to the audiobook for this. I promise you will not be disappointed. Is this a sticker? Can I take this off? Has a sticker on it. Don't love that, but whatever. Yeah. This has fall vibes to me. I don't know why. I think maybe maybe mystery just feels like fall to me. I don't know. Does this take place in the fall? I don't remember. But it has fall vibes to me. Don't question it. I think it's the podcast elements, actually. I think there's something about like sitting and listening to a mystery podcast that just feels like really cool fall day activity. So yeah. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. This is a book about a small secluded like village in the middle of like fucking nowhere that can't get access to anywhere else except in the summers, who has visitors come. They just show up, there's some weird people, and then things start to go wrong. Like fields are set on fire and people are getting hurt and things are just going really wrong. I don't know how to like explain this book more than that. There's like a strong family and a romance that I like surprisingly didn't hate, even though it wasn't queer. So that was fun. This book does have like the end of this, like this was a book that I just couldn't put down. And it's definitely very bee motify and very fall feeling because there's like crops and stuff. I live in Alberta, which is a province in Canada that is like just farming communities as fuck. So like, I don't know, something about harvest season always just is like very fall to me. So yeah, this book had really fall vibes, very like honey and bees and crops. I really recommend this book if you want like a mystery kind of horror-y YA book that feels really fall. So yeah, that's this. That's these. Those are the 10 books that I think there are 10. Wait, yeah, those are the 10 books that I think feel like fall and that I would recommend for you to read this fall, but maybe not this spooky season, but maybe this spooky season. If you want to read, like Small Favors and Coraline are really good spooky season reads. And if you want like a nice and if you want like a ghost book that isn't spooky, then like Under the Whispering Door for sure. It's like a lot of these could be spooky books. Sadie even could be a spooky book, but like they're not necessarily spooky books. So yeah, these are all the books that feel like fall to me. Let me know down below if there is a book that you just feel like feels exactly like fall to you. Maybe this is a weird thing. Maybe you don't associate books with seasons at all. And I don't just naturally do that, but I have to like if I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this book feels like winter, you know? I will see you whenever I do my next video.